Hello and welcome back to The Right Part. Today I'm going to be doing a vintage set review. God, I hope 2004 is old enough to call vintage. It is set number 4857. Ox Fusion Lab, contains 234 elements and was released to coincide with Spider-Man 2, of which it was also based on. When this set was still on shelves, it retailed for only 20 USD. However, its aftermarket value has skyrocketed. I believe that this is partly due to nostalgia for the old Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. Can't fault you, MCU Spider-Man Iron Man Junior Man is kind of a train wreck. Ooh, pick up your pitchforks and roast me in the comments, I stepped on a landmine there. But also because the set is, well, remarkably charming. I know that's a weird way of describing a set that doesn't have mind-blown building techniques or the Van Gogh visual aesthetics, yet nonetheless it radiates a homely cheesy vibe that I adore. But before I continue on to the in-depth with the figures, I would like to preface this with a small disclaimer. I received the set from my cousin, well, he's technically my uncle, who purchased it back in 2004 and has played extensively with it. As you can expect, it bears the wear of play, from dents in certain elements, tooth marks, broken stickers, some snap parts, and also yellowing. I have tried my best to replace all the damaged pieces. However, the minifigures from the set are ludicrously expensive, and are tremendously overpriced, so I couldn't replace the damaged minifigs. Fortunately, the one single aspect of the set that has exploded in value the most is still in mint condition, and that is the grey tank top rendition of Mr. Otto Octavius. It's a stupid name. This is possibly due to it being one of only two Doc Ock that donned a grey suit, though I would prefer to forget about the other monstrosity. Doc Ock has some very detailed metallic printing on his torso. The print is surprisingly well applied. It's a very uniform application, definitely more uniform than LEGO does nowadays. You'll notice that the metallic print fades a bit at the top of the tentacle apparatus. I watched Ripstar's review and his version also seems to have this fade, so it could be just part of the intended minifigure design and not due to playwear. Bit odd though, as in the movie it was one continuous strap of metal and still should have uniform reflectivity. This could be chalked up to having to use concept art when designing the minifig. All complaining aside, the texture of the tentacle belly strap is accurate to the on-screen prop. Props to LEGO, pun intended. Onto Alfred Molina's abs. I know I just said that, shut up. The print detail is awfully thick. Bringing on Batman as a comparison, LEGO no longer uses such thick lines for fine details such as body definition. It sticks out like a sore thumb. LEGO also decided to print the abs using dark grey on a light grey torso, so his abs look super sweaty like wet parts of his shirt. Downright disgusting in my opinion. Somebody should have thought this through. Once again, this could be avoided if the lines were less thick. But because they're so chunky, they look like wet sections of a shirt. You could say that this minor oversight is excusable because LEGO was still nailing down the proportions of minifigure detail. You'll be right. Hello, Goblet Fire On. He's over there. And none of the minifigures bear this as severely as Mr. Octavius' face. Another preface! 2004 was the first year that LEGO started including realistic skin tones on LEGO minifigures. The previous year, LEGO included a realistic skin tone for one character, but that was because he was of colour, Lando Calrissian. 2004 was the first year that realistic skin tones were used for all minifigures in a given licensed set. Spider-Man 2 happened to be the first thing that LEGO implemented it in. Unfortunately, some designers thought that realistic skin tone also meant realistic expressions and facial proportions, which is why here is a slideshow of minifigure grotesqueness. Sorry for referencing Harry Potter so many times, especially given JK's recent Twitch activity. I'll just leave it at that for more qualified individuals to pick up. This mouth speaks for itself, and my throat is getting parched and sore now, so I'm going to sip my water while you stare into our tentacle terrestrial tyrant's traps. Cheap shots aside, Doc Ock's eyes are equally goofy. Those blank unmoving green goggles. I understand that this is incredibly accurate to the on-screen appearance, other than the goggles being green instead of black, with the goggles completely. I made a new word. With the goggles completely obscuring the eyes and the eyebrows. It doesn't translate well into LEGO. He's so expressionless other than his mouth, but that hurts him more than it adds. LEGO could have included eyebrows in conveying the feeling of anguish better, or have printed his eyes over the goggles, given the appearance that the goggles are semi-translucent so Art Octavius can emote. The bow hairpiece is not ideal for Doc Ock, but it was the best piece at the time. Currently I would use the Han Solo hair instead. Fun fact, Doc Ock's tentacle pieces were explicitly developed for this character. This is still the best, most visually appealing, functional and mechanical looking of all LEGO Doc Ock tentacle designs. Cough 2019 Doc Ock. Cough. There are 3 points of articulation on each arm. It can rotate at the base, at the middle section and the tip. The claw can also rotate and grab bar-sized items. In the movie, each arm had 3 pinches and one of them had a spike, but 2 is an okay compromise. They can also rotate around the central gear. The arms are attached to Technic pin neck brace so it can spin, which means Doc Ock helicopter! Speeding up the flow of the review a bit, we're going to jump to the ambulance before we continue on to the other minifigures. Before I got the set, I never understood why people liked 4-stud wide vehicles. I thought the limited scale meant the car would be under-detailed and very skinny. All my worries were confirmed. However, that is also the charm of building at this scale. The simplicity and narrow profile brings a cutesy cartoony vibe and a look into creating some 4-wide mocks. But just because it's under-detailed doesn't mean it's devoid of detail. My favourite piece of greebling is using the slider piece as a footrail or compartment under the vehicle. I love the texture of the element, with the inset vertical stripes contrasting with the horizontal cut. To my dismay, the majority of the other details, pretty much anything that can distinguish this as an ambulance, are achieved with stickers. Every decorated element on this ambulance other than the hood is a sticker. What's worse, the sticker across the side panels are a stamp, a sticker that's across multiple pieces. This makes it impossible to separate those 2 panels without ripping the stick in half, which my uncle did, and it now looks kind of crap. I should probably invest in purchasing a brand new sticker sheet for this set. Enough with the sticker rent. What's good with an ambulance if it can't function? You can get a driver in alright, just open the doors, remove the roof and plop him in. How about its purpose in the scene, which is transporting Doc Ock to the hospital where his arms can be amputated? To achieve this, open the back door, slide out the scratcher, pull out its wheels, and throw Doc Ock onto it. Oh no, his tentacles are in the way, so he has to be sitting upright. Odd for an unconscious man, but I can roll with that. Retract the wheels back and toss it into the ambulance. Well, this ain't gonna work. Okay, maybe I can remove the tentacles, which completely voids the purpose of the hospital scene, but at least he'll fit. What now? The Technic pin in his back is causing him to sit too far up, and his head is colliding with the roof. Damn, this ambulance is real crap at its job. Granted, ambulances are probably not intended to transport maniacal or semi-sympathetic supervillains, and it works fine for civilian transport. Unfortunately, no character included in the set, other than I Can't Fit Doc Ock, actually rode in an ambulance. Spider-Man was mostly uninjured, Harry Osborn suffered only minor cuts. This leaves us with a driver who could have been in an ambulance, but then who would drive it? In conclusion, the ambulance is a cute build, but doesn't fit in with the context of the set. Can't function like it did in the movie, and I would prefer if the pieces used for the ambulance were instead implemented to make the laboratory bigger. Sorry, I misspoke. Harry Osborn does need to go to the hospital for some facial reconstruction and plastic surgery. Yes, the inevitable decay of time and place has chipped away at James Franco's handsome face and... Damn, I misspoke again. It looks closer to James Corden than James Franco. For those viewers with keen eye and extensive knowledge of LEGO minifigs, you'll know that this is the same design used for Norman Osborn from Spider-Man 1, just printed on a peach head. Somebody at LEGO took the phrase like father, like son too literally. Nah, this doesn't look like Willem Dafoe either. On the brighter side, the suit is accurate with the pinstripes until you flip it to the back, where the pinstripes abruptly stop. Harry does have a subtle inset waistline. I thought LEGO only did this with female minifigs, but hey, gender equality. Other than his disfigured face, I'm sure Mr. Franco would object to being given a Bowden Dracula hairstyle, where half of the back of his head is utterly devoid of luscious brown locks. I understand that in the scene he did have strap back hair, but he's not 50. And now, an ad break. Corporate wants you to find the difference between these 2 pictures. Why the goddamn bloody ruddy hell is Mr. Octavius' respectable residence and laboratory a rustic rudimentary fire station? Why are the walls red? The movie had dark tan to brown walls. Which genius thought that red was a good idea? It's a ridiculous colour for brick and mortar that will only reasonably exist in the fairy tale land of My Little Pony or the absolute nightmare hellscape of poor merchandising patrol. It breaks the suspension of disbelief for me and pulls me out of the set. All the other Spider-Man 2 sets had primarily grey, tan or brown walls, so why is it red? Get all the bulls and cattle you can wrangle and tear down this monstrosity. I can do this. I can do this. The exterior of the building is overly simple. They're just a door and a couple of windows. To make matters worse, they're the older style door and window and thus don't gel well with the current LEGO design style and ethos. I don't know why, maybe the windows are too big and under-detailed to fly in the current system. The door and windows also lack glass, and by glass I'm referring to translucent plastic. That would be fine if it weren't for the glass panel situated directly above the door, which creates a distracting inconsistency. Either every opening of the house has glass or none of them has. You have to pick one or the other, do not go with the middle. Onto the part I like about the exterior, which there aren't many. The sticker is cute. It does look suitably modern, but it has Otto Octavius incorporated, while in the movie Otto was funded by Oscorp. Not a big deal. When compared with what the Underworld is doing here, Red, it is small peanuts. Wait, isn't this wireless positives? The drain is an excellent detail. It didn't require much effort, but the wall does use some textured blocks for detail, which is quite lovely. Once again, the in-movie building is made of bricks and concrete, so the corrugated steel should be replaced with masonry bricks. Finally, the field of view is to be admired. The second floor is noticeably shorter than the first floor. While this could be attributed to keeping the part count down, I believe this is a conscious decision to create a depth of field, to make the building seem taller than it is. The interior is minimal and cramped. It is so restricted there's not enough room to operate the main play feature. Doc Ock's tentacles will just catch onto the window support. Luckily, this issue can be easily solved by hinging the interior out, leaving the exterior as just a facade. And the main play feature, drumroll please. I'm not claiming credit for that joke, neither do I want to. You can press down on the fusion reactor, simulating its malfunction, and this will launch Doc Ock backwards off his pedestal and knock him unconscious. Granted, in the movie he was fried unconscious when the reactor burnt the chip on his back, when he turned to see his wife die. Fun for the whole family. LEGO's more wholesome variant is understandable. The mechanism itself is elegant. When the fusion reactor is pressed down, it will cause the slider to slide towards the left. A couple of gear racks are attached to the slider, so when it moves, the gear racks will turn a Technic gear, which is connected to a lever that activates the trapdoor piece and launches Otto off. Ingenious for 2004, I'm impressed. Equally impressive is the usage of artways to form the supports of the stage. Addressing the elephant in the room, the stage was round in the film and not as elevated. However, the 2-brick height is necessary to encapsulate the inner Technic workings, and I'd like to see you do better. Now back to the arches. They provide an unusual visual stimulus and shape while allowing you to get a sneak peek at the inner mechanism. That's 2 birds with 1 stone. Yay! The reactor itself, though, is, to summarize in one word, yikes. It's blue and yellow and purple. You'd probably expect me to go on another rant, but I'm tired now and my throat is parched and sore, so I'll leave it at that. Apart from Doc Ock, the most valuable part of the set is surprisingly the blue Battledroid arms, which are exclusive. The length Star Wars collectors would go to, eh? Unfortunately, half of my blue Battledroid arms are broken, the clip snapped in half. To quote Jar Jar Binks, "Misa no happy, Misa no riches anymore." And here's a transition so smart, so natural, such literary merit that your jaw will drop. Let's review Spider-Man. He is damaged. He is damaged. His weapon has all but faded, the tip of his eye is scratched. I was going to buy a replacement head, but the prices were just ludicrous. Overall, this is a fine minifigure for 2004. It has printing on the back of his head, which was a premium for minifigures in the early 2000s, almost like Boba's arm printing. The metallic paint also seems to be of passable quality. It is still pristine on the torso. I can't say the same for the head, but when it's been through the tumble dryer and back, what more do you expect? Interestingly, the suit Tobey Maguire wore in Spider-Man 2 had lighter blues than the one in Spider-Man 1, while the LEGO figure has dark blue for Spider-Man 2 and medium blue for Spider-Man 1. However, the compositing work in Spider-Man 2 made the suit look darker than the version in 1, so that's neither here nor there. He also comes with a standard shrimp piece to act as webbing. Finally, we reach the ambulance driver, who is the real hero of the set. He looks very snazzy in his dark blue jacket. Reminds me of my dark blue coat, which is nearly identical down to the way it creases. The rest of the torso print is equally modern. In particular, I love the contrast between the medium and dark blue. That could also be because blue is my favourite colour. Onto the head, which is so in line with LEGO's current proportions that you could plop it into 2020 sets and nobody would notice. There's not much more I can say here. It's an all-round fantastic minifigure that's aged exceptionally well. In conclusion, it's an okay set by today's standards. However, when reviewing relics of the past, we must remember the context that they were released in. For when most LEGO sets look like this, Dark Ops Fusion Lab is the holy grail. I have poked fun and ridiculed multiple aspects of the model, but it's all in good fun. I love the set. I love the boxy basic cartoony look. I love the ingenious part usage and tactic mechanism, and I even begrudgingly love the goddamn red walls. This is the right part. That has been an overly rambly review. This is going to be a pain to edit. Until next time, keep on building. Wait, isn't this where let's Shabir was doing my voice? Oh my god. This is terrible. Granted, ambulances are probably not intended to transport maniacal or semi-sympathetic. Why do I write my script so complicated? Oh, this is why you include a full stop. Oh, in the wall! Ooh, I read my script wrong. Ha 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 ha. Finally, we reached your Merry Christmas. Wait, isn't this where let's... oh my god, I can't read my script anymore.